Hey, what is up, everyone? It is Rich. All right, welcome to a video. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the X-Men Annual number 10 by Arthur Adams, and this is going to be fun. I was tempted to do a video on kind of Arthur's newer stuff that he's been doing the last, whatever, say 6 months. But I opted to do this because I think there's a lot of nostalgia for people that are fans of Arthur Adams for these annuals. And so it just seemed like a fun opportunity to look at sequential art and really some classic stuff. So I'm going to go into full screen. I'm cleaning my glasses really quick. Someone mentioned in the comments of one of my last two videos they could hear a fan noise in the background. It's my computer's fan. When I run OBS, it'll come on, so you may hear a slight hum in the background. There's not much I can do about it. I mean, I've got the mic a couple of feet away from the fan, but it just kicks on between the two. I don't have any other programs running in the background, but it still does it, so I don't know. All right, so let's go full screen and check out this cover. All right, so this is badass. I have read these books. It's been like forever, though. I mean, honestly, I probably haven't read them in years, like years and years and years. It would be fun to actually go back and read these. And then the other thing, Arthur did a few of these X-Men annual covers, and I can imagine if you were a fan at this time, that this would really be something that you would look forward to. I don't know if, as a fan, like if you lived in, whatever, New Mexico, and you had X-Men Annual number 10. I don't know if you would be anticipating that he was going to do the next one, like if that was common knowledge. But ultimately, he did do a few, and they're all great. They really are. And I love this period of Arthur's work. It's just really, really fun. I know that this stuff is very influential to really a lot of our favorite artists. That came after these books, all they all really enjoyed this work, and rightfully so. It's really fantastic stuff. So all right, let's get into the actual comic itself. Man, this cover is just great. We can get a little bigger. If you have a favorite X-Men annual, let me know in the comment section below. I'd be curious. I was thinking about grabbing a different issue, but I kind of looked through each one, and I thought this one had good bang for your buck for a YouTube video. So that's what it goes. My fan is going full steam right now. I can hear it. So annoying. I don't remember if it used to do it or if it's like a new thing or what. I don't. It's just I don't really watch my old videos. So it's hard for me to remember. All right, so Danger Room piece. Always cool to see. Let's see. So written by Chris Claremont, Arthur Adams pencils, Terry Austin inker, who's phenomenal. Petra Scottesi is the colorist. Tom Orzakowski is the letterer. And Nascenti editor. Jim Shooter editor in chief. Soon to be leaving Marvel. Well, in a few years to go do, I guess, Valiant. Did he work at? He worked at Valiant, then I think went to Defiant. Hopefully, I'm right on that. I'm not sure what year Valiant started, to be honest. Man, Arthur, he draws the smallest stuff. It must have been interesting. I wonder, like Terry Austin, I wonder what his thoughts were on inking Arthur, like when he initially got into it, because if you're an inker or even a colorist, to be honest, and you're working with a penciler, sorry, some of these scans are a little dull, and you're not used to doing this level of detail, this can really kind of kick your ass because it's like, okay, I know the penciler is psycho, but I don't know if I'm as psycho as this guy is, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It's more complimentary. But yeah, when you've got someone that uses like a ton of shapes, a ton of detail, and is willing to draw for 3 days to do a page, you're in for the same ride, and not everyone is built with the same stamina and constitution for comicking. So it's an interesting dynamic, the collaborative process on it. Yeah, these scans are a little dull. It's kind of a bummer. That is an interesting thing with collecting old newsprint comics too. I'm gonna guess that these scans are just not great, but you know, it can really vary, and especially if it's a book that you love and you get like one copy of it and it doesn't look great, you know, you can, if they're affordable enough and you can pick up a second copy, you might be surprised how different two comics of the same book can look back in this day, because I've seen it where the colors are more dull or more bright, or just for whatever reason, one is just a much better reproduction. So it's just, you know, if you haven't really messed around with that, it's definitely worth it. Man, this is so great. His figures are so cool. He Arthur does some of the most dynamic like front view characters. It's funny because I haven't done it in a while because I don't really do like much like lesson type material anymore. But um, you know, front views can kind of be the kiss of death. They can look a little boring, and you know, I mean, they engage because the character is looking towards you, but at the same time, especially if the chest is facing forward, it can really lock you into a very limited amount of poses. You're dealing with a very kind of, I don't know, kind of a flat perspective, but art is really able to do some pretty dynamic poses. I mean, this Wolverine is just slightly turned, which helps him not just look like a chest with like legs popping out of his like ribs. But yeah, I mean, it's a real delicate balance, and this Colossus is great. But again, he's slightly turned just a little bit, but art will do a lot of front views, and you know, it's for beginning artists, there's a tendency to want to draw things straightforward, and I do it all the time still to this day. I mean, just, you know, it's just one of those things where I'll go in with good intentions of doing something else, and then ultimately I settle for that. It depends on what it is. If I'm just drawing it for fun, then usually I will head that direction. But anyway, man, this is great. His mojo is like so iconic. That's great. Yeah, a lot of detail. I'm trying to remember there. This might have been around the period where Arthur Adams and Mignola were kind of like hanging out, and I think they lived in the same apartment building, something like that. Um, but in the Mignola documentary, Drawing Monsters, I think Arthur says it that you know, people perceived Arthur as being really slow and taking forever on his pages, but he said, you know, Mignola actually would spend kind of the same amount of time on his art, and at the end, his stuff was way more simple, but there was that much effort going into the idea of what to leave out, and that is very, very, very relatable. People do not understand sometimes from the outside trying to minimalize things. It's like man, it's it's a it's a really interesting thing what people that look at art appreciate, and the level of complexity, and it's a very, very interesting thing what they consider value. I've talked about it before. Like, people value feathering, people value cross hatching, and if you are known for that and you start to omit it, then you're immediately, it's like, oh, they're getting lazy, or they're doing this, or they're doing that. Now, if you started out with like a more minimalistic style and you refine it even more, and maybe even get more minimalistic, sometimes people will call that brilliant, you know. It's like, this is genius, or unusual structure. You know, not everyone can get away with figures that look this way. You know, like, what looks wrong. You know, if Frank Cho drew, you know, a character that looked like this, people would go, "What happened to Frank Cho? Like this doesn't. This is kind of weird." And then, you know, but art can do it, and people will love it for that. Like, these fingers are actually pretty long. I don't know what she's putting on his face, but it looks creepy. Everyone got hit with it, whatever it is. All right. These old ads are funny. All right, let's continue. Oh, this is a nice page. Oh, this is. I was funny. I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of J. Scott Campbell, and then I saw this. Jeff used that in Gen 13 number 2. There's a swimsuit scene with Rainmaker, Roxy, Freefall, and Caitlin are laying out by the pool. I think in the second issue of Gen 13. I'm pretty sure. And yeah, he did that. This is what I'm talking about. Arthur Adams' far-reaching influence. Colors are actually very nice on this page. I like it a lot. All right, full. All right, let's shut this. My fan goes into overdrive. It's like, I can't take this, Rich. These videos kill me. Oh, this is nice. You know what? Jeff kind of bit this too. I think in a bit sounds, but I'm nearly sure in the Gen 13 miniseries he does something really similar to this. So my guess is when Jeff was doing some of his early work, the Art Adams comics were either so ingrained in his mind, or he might have broke them out for some inspiration. Man, this is great. These little cartoony figures are so freaking tight. They're really, really good. You can, like, what's interesting about this is there's a real level of confidence, and it could be the inks also, but yeah, these figures are really starting to lock in. You know, where if you look at sometimes earlier Arthur Adams, it can look a little like he's not as confident with like his structure and stuff like that. And then you get a couple hundred pages under your belt, things start to like level out for you just naturally. And also, I mean, this is really, really true. And I know every artist tries to avoid this, which is things that don't work, pieces that fail, you know. It's a bummer when it happens, but I honestly, and you've heard so many different people, athletes, musicians, all say this, but honestly, you really do learn a lot from the things that don't work, and a lot of times, even though you might walk away from a piece being like a little disappointed that it didn't turn out exactly how you want, ultimately what you're doing is you're refining things and you won't fall into that trap again, and that can eliminate a lot of problems in a lot of different situations. So although it's one piece sort of bit the dust, it may elevate the next 300 pieces you do. So it's the gains are actually like they multiply and sort of amplify as you go along, because again, this is a really good example of these figures are all really solid. This is a guy who I can just clearly see has got a lot of confidence with his forms and how he constructs these and how he's positioning everything and all that. It's really, really solid. I love these shots. I think I'm trying to think that I my first exposure to these down shots would have been like Wolf's Portaccio, maybe, is kind of where I remember seeing it. But Wolf's did ink Arthur Adams on the Long Shot miniseries, which, you know, if you're a hardcore Arthur Adams fan and you've been around comics for a long time, that's probably common knowledge to you. But for me, getting interested in comics when just Image was coming out and then kind of going back and like sort of retroactively learning about comics, that was a pretty trippy discovery for me. It's like, wow, Willis was an inker and he inked Arthur Adams on Longshot? That's crazy. But it was true. This is great. This is another thing that Arthur does that not everyone can get away with. It can look a little stiff, in the wrong hands, but he's able to do like a flat perspective thing, like this panel right here, where like this character isn't literally standing on the panel border. But I'll tell you what, not everyone can get away with characters standing parallel with the panel border in general. Like it can look very kind of and on top of it, Art will sometimes he'll sometimes have them a little below the panel border or a little bit above, closer than this shot in the second panel. But yeah, that's not everyone has that option, believe it or not. There's certain styles of art, like comic art, that I don't think it works, and most of them won't even do it because I think they instinctively know that it doesn't look good. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing. But yeah, different styles can withstand different techniques and approaches that you wouldn't really be aware of unless you maybe have like drawn comics for a while, or some people are maybe more observant, or in like things like that are more obvious to them. I don't know. Maybe not. I'll see if I can find one in this book. He did it more back in these days than oh, well, here's one right here. Speaking of that, see this? Like, he's using the bottom of the panel basically as like a plane, and again he scoots him up just the tiniest bit. But yeah, like I said, I mean, not everyone can do that. It just doesn't. It won't look right. It's always funny to see cars in these old comics. The actual cab of the car is too narrow compared to the grill. If you look at it, like, the perspective, I think, is off just a little bit, or they'll end up looking too squared off. But it's a common thing. If you most early people's cars, if they're not tracing them from what are they called? Those, the models that SketchUp models. uh, they didn't have that in '86, but yeah, they'll look a little boxy, and a lot of times that, like, the doors will be too big, or the car will be too narrow or too wide, or, like, again, it'll look a little too squared off. But he did a nice job. This panel right here is actually really, really good. Horses, that's always a notoriously tricky thing for artists to draw, and they look nice. I like this one in particular. Okay. Oh, right. Ooh, this is a nice page. Oh, see, like, and look, check out this page. This is crazy. I mean, like, this is really wild with them all sitting here. And the babies thing is an interesting phenomenon too. Um, you know, uh, it makes me think of the Star Wars quote. It's a trap. But uh like, if you become like a baby artist, where like you're known for drawing baby versions of characters, it can definitely put you in a weird lane artistically, like your perception from the fan base. I've seen it kind of backfire on people occasionally, not a lot, but nowadays, and in particular though, like with some distance and years in the business, I think if you just continue producing art, in a variety of stuff, it wouldn't affect you too much. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely kind of get, like, if people loved it, and that was, they're like, oh, do baby Avengers, and then you're doing babies this and babies that. Again, it's the, now your perception is shifted with the fans, and if all of a sudden you do Superman and Superman's big, they're gonna be like, oh man, what about the baby stuff? You're like, I'm more than just a baby. Oh, it's a great panel. This is really cool. Great hands. His hands always have so much energy and just really, like, fit. This is great. Little Wolverine is awesome. That is really good too. Boy, I bet these originals are out there somewhere in probably different collections, and Arthur may have some. Who knows? Maybe Arthur kept them all, or the inker Terry Austin might still have them. But man, I bet they are so cool looking. Full. All right, this is great. His face. Yeah, comics is it's a really fun business to be in, the business of art. But it is cool. It's kind of interesting too, because I mean, I've been around comics for a long time now, and I was listening to an interview this morning with you too, and they were talking about, like, making music, and it doesn't really matter if you like the band or not, but it's about having a long career in music essentially, and it's like, um, part of the win is just being able to do it for 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. That's a huge accomplishment that uh can easily be overlooked if you're in the eye of the hurricane with it. But Arthur is someone who I really hold in super high regard for a multitude of reasons, but one in particular in the last 10 years is he's not a young guy, and he is so prolific. He always does great work. I almost never see an Arthur Adams sketch, page, cover, whatever, commission, whatever he's working on. They are all really really good. His commissions that he was doing over the last, like, he has, I haven't seen as many full piece commissions, like cover sort of, I wouldn't call them recreations exactly, but he'll do sort of like homages to covers. But he's been doing a lot more sketch covers lately. But man, like, his pieces were just insane. And I've said in other Arthur, these faces are great. I said in another Arthur Adams video, one of my favorite pieces that he did about, it's been a few years now, maybe 8 years ago, was he did a Walking Dead, like, I don't even know, maybe a quintuple gatefold cover or connecting covers. It was so badass. It was so good. And I mean, he's done commissions for a couple of friends of mine. Like a Star Wars #1 cover piece. I mean, there's some like Fantastic Four stuff. There's a piece with Sentinels. Oh man, they're like so good. So he's really, I think, an incredible role model to have for anyone, whether you're at the beginning of your career or if you've been in it longer. Is just always work hard on your stuff, really put a lot of passion into it, and you'll have a higher likelihood of connecting with people and having them really enjoy what you do. This is kind of interesting too. So Travis Charest in Flash Annual had to do a movie theater scene, and it's possible that even Travis might have used this as a little bit of inspiration or influence. I don't know that for a fact, but the way that this panel looks and the way that he kind of handled his scenes is really really similar. Now, is there a million different ways to handle a movie theater scene? No and yes. This is great. But yeah. Oh, see, look at this. This is awesome. Man, what a great panel. I'd be really I mean, I'd be really curious of how long a page like this takes, Art. I can't imagine that he can do it in a day, maybe with just pencil. I'll be honest too, because this is something that I think about a lot, and I really feel like one mistake that we've made in comics in the last, well, really like 20 years now, is I really feel that too many pencilers ink their own work. It's a little bit of blasphemy, because I think that if you're European, that's, like, not only do they pencil and ink their own work, but many times they color it, or they'll digitally color it. Maybe there's no inks, but for a good workflow, and to really, I think, give it your all, especially if you're doing sequential art that's going to be this work intensive. I think, like, you end up cutting corners somewhere, unless you're psycho, and some are. I've been it. But ultimately what you start doing is you start going like, how can I do a little less pencils and maybe finish it in the inks? Or if you don't do that and you still do like pretty tight pencils and then ink it, you're really really stacking on a lot of hours. Like, say, like, if this page took 12 hours to pencil, 10 hours to pencil, and you pencil it tight, you're looking at it easily another 10 or 12 hours, if not sometimes a little bit more. Sometimes inking stuff can be a little more time consuming than penciling it. Although penciling, what ends up happening is you can lose time laying stuff out. You might struggle with a layout and spend 3 to 5 hours trying to work out a pose, or just whatever. The puzzle pieces didn't go together as quick as you hoped. But that's not even really time that you spent drawing the page. Although sometimes it can speed up the final process if you've done a pretty tight layout. But I think to do 20 pages of where you pencil and ink yourself on a sequential book, the idea of really being able to produce too many books in a year ends up being almost impossible. So there's definitely something to be said about finding a good inker and just becoming a team. I still consider it to this day. I'm not even kidding with my own stuff. And I mean, many people who have known my work, say, for a long time, uh, would know me as an inker, But I even with that, I still feel that like maybe using an inker is a better idea. Because to do stuff like this, you have to be focused on the pencils. You don't want to be thinking like, I don't want to draw 500 little divots in this piece of tech because at the end I'm gonna have to ink all this shit. Mojo knows. My pets, bring them to me, each and every one. All right, settle down, Rich. You're getting carried away. What else? What else? What else? Arthur, it was really interesting. So Arthur did some work for Wildstorm in like the late '90s or early 2000s. Like he did The Authority. There was a book that he did. Oh, he did Johnny Future. Those were huge originals too. So like normally comic book original art is 11 by 17 for Johnny Future. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. He was working oversized. The originals were gigantic. I wouldn't say that they were double page spread size, but they were big. They were probably, I'm gonna say they were maybe 17 or 18 inches wide by about maybe he was working on like 19 by 24 board or a little bit smaller. They were big, big pieces. And he was still doing all that detail. But Arthur is nuts. He was inking that stuff too, but he was doing short stories. So he was on the hook for about, I'm going to say 8 to 12 pages per issue. So it's still a lot, 12 pages of pencils and inks that size, like just basically double page spread size with all the detail that he puts. That would be a full month's worth of work easily, and long days more likely too when you're rendering everything like that. Somewhere I have photocopies of all that stuff. J. Scott Campbell and I would make copies of the art. I haven't seen them in years, but yeah, you couldn't even. You'd have to copy them in like two pieces, but they were beautiful, beautiful originals. That's great. That's a lot of hair. Hair raising experience. Here's a nice front view. Classic Wolverine swing. Nice, juicy, big round shapes and flow to that. That's great. This looks awesome. Nice fist. This is a nice arm too. That's great. This has a little I could see Jim Lee kind of being into this. Sorry, it's pretty pixely, but another thing you can look for if you're a fan of Arthur Adams is Arthur does these yearly what are they called? I think I have a couple in here somewhere. Do I? I'm looking at my bookshelf to see if I can spot them. Maybe I don't have them in here. I thought I did. I just seen them. They're like it's like kind of like the Arthur Adams sketchbook. Some of them are kind of expensive now, but you could get enough to satisfy yourself. But they're really really cool. It's like black and white art. It's like some of the commissions he does. Really really detailed stuff though. But very fun to see. That's great. These are all awesome. Getting that flat perspective. He has it here too. Can your art withstand the flat perspective? And not this. I mean, it's a lot of artists will do stuff like this, but what I'm talking about is where you have people standing almost on the panel border below. If you draw, do you do it or do you avoid it? This is nice. I was actually studying some stuff the other morning of garments that actually had stuff like this. It was funny. It wasn't what I was intentionally seeking out, but it ended up showing me some stuff like this, and I was like, well, this is like pretty cool. I can't remember what it was called. There was like a name for this sort of cut of a dress or whatever. think I think honestly, I think that they were ballroom gowns. That wasn't what originally was looking at, but was I was looking at folds and fabric and stuff like that just to sort of like keep my brain accumulating mental images of what folds and pleats and stuff like that look like. It's really good to do, honestly, because I mean, when you're drawing, what'll happen is like if Mojo had like a sleeve or something like that, you'll just kind of know by the pose like where the folds will go. It's like starts to it starts to just become logical, but it's logic based on I think a lot of like studying and practice. But trust me, I don't have any of this stuff down. I was joking with someone. Oh, I was in one of the YouTube videos. I said something about capes. Like I don't really draw very good capes. I have a few tricks that can make parts of the cape look good, but overall, I don't feel like I've got a handle on them just yet. I don't know why, but I haven't really practiced them that much where I should be great at it. So it's partially my own fault. Someday my cape game will be strong. This is nice. Her hair is wild, man. She's like that is very 80s. She's got like this the uber queen mullet, like skunk stripe. Oh man, this is so good. It's a shame that it's not a little more clear, but man, it's badass. I don't know if they've. I would assume maybe Marvel has reprinted these annuals as like a maybe like a trade or something that would collect them. I had like one. I did have a collection of Arthur Adams. It was like a trade of Marvel stuff. I can't remember what book it was. I haven't seen it in forever. Wow, Colossus has got spiky arm. All right. All right, we're getting there. We got a few more pages and then we'll wrap this up. But hopefully that was fun for people. You know, I'm always trying to help artists, you know, work through like little mental gymnastics. And I think looking at someone that's been as successful as Arthur has been a little earlier in his career is always fun for people. Um, you know, because it's like there's like a historical aspect of it, but then there's also sort of like the arc of his evolution as an artist. So it's there's a point of interest to it. Plus, the stuff is just fun. So annoying with that fan. Sometimes though, it's not as noticeable. I've got the mic pretty far away from it, but I have a hunch it's gonna pick it up a little bit. We'll see. Oh, you know, that was what I was gonna do. Is I was gonna run a noise filter on my mic so it'll cut out certain decibels of sound, and it may actually be able to pull the fan sound out. So I need to look into that again because I had played with a noise filter a year or two ago, and then just ultimately didn't end up using it. But now it might not be a bad idea, to be honest, because I think it might work, and I'm a little more handy with those kind of plugins. This is nice. Oh, that is funny. 54 cents a copy. $7.75 for your 12 issue subscription. That is a bargain. This is nice. Her knee is like literally on the panel border almost. I guess there's a nice thick black line around it, so it's not technically the panel border, but yeah. Yep, yep, yep. Look at this. He's flying close to the flame right there. Oh my god. Like you said, occasionally he'll go below the panel border a little bit, but most of the times it's just slightly nudged above. And again, if you draw, let me know if you do this, or if you've tried it and you realize it doesn't work in your stuff. I'd be curious if anyone has had that, um, experience. It didn't work for me. I couldn't do it. It didn't look good. But I'm constantly experimenting, almost to the point of like I don't know. But I enjoy like kind of trying different things and seeing like other interests that I have, like giving it a shot just to see like, is this something that I could do? Is this fun? It was really interesting, and I'll end on this little side sidebar thing. But anyway, but that was great. Oh man, the Barry Windsor Smith issue that's kind of colored like this with Storm is so good. We might have to look at that soon. But yeah, a few weeks ago I was drawing and I was experimenting, and I was just I just sit and I just draw. I'll draw for 8 hours and just try stuff. And I was drawing all these different things and kind of, I'll occasionally like kind of have an idea. I'll go like, okay, I'm gonna try to draw Mojo, but I'm gonna do it, like with this, and this, or whatever it is. And I drew 3 or 4 drawings of a particular character. I'm not gonna say who it is because eventually I'll probably either use them as layouts for finished pieces or something like that. But when I finished them, I did them. I penciled, inked, and colored them with I think Copics, and I was smiling and I was like happy when I finished them, and I was looking at them, and they actually brought me like a weird sense of joy that I rarely experienced drawing. It was very like noticeable, like it really shifted my mood. I was like, that's weird, because it's not a style that people have really seen me do. It's not something that I think people would expect from me or whatever like that. But it was really weird, like how much joy it brought me, and like how like I was genuinely smiling, like something good had happened. And it was kind of a weird moment where I was like, is this it? Is this like the path that I should really be like following? So you never know. Like, I mean, and again, I've been drawing and inking for 30 years. So, it's not like I'm not like some dabbler that has fucked around with art for a few months and starts a YouTube channel is trying to sell you shit all the time. You know, I'm just being honest. But yeah, it was a really interesting experience, and something that I was like, maybe there's something to this. So when I have time, I'm going to explore it more. But I mean, I have things that I have to do, so I can't always just sort of like follow these little sort of breadcrumb trails and see where they go. But I don't know. It was an interesting moment because it's very, very rare. I mean, I remember when I was doing the black drawing pieces, like I would be really excited as they were getting closer to being done. I would put them a few feet away from me in my office that would generally be kind of dark, and so like just my desk light would be like lighting them up from far away. And man, they look so cool, and I was like, fuck, this is gonna be awesome. Like I can't wait to like post this online. But the thing that happened a few weeks ago was different, because it was a different feeling of joy that it's hard to pinpoint, like explain like how it felt. Anyway, all right, look, you guys have a great day. We looked at some amazing Arthur Adams. You definitely need to enjoy Arthur's work and appreciate him. And if you don't follow him on like Instagram, or I don't know what other social media stuff he's on, you should definitely do it, because he's always just posting bangers, and he's been doing a ton of sketchbook covers, so those are always fun to see. I saw a great one on Facebook this morning that was really cool. It was a color piece. It was really, really fun. Sorry, look, you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you all later, and bye.